Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor at Tulane University, and I just want to quilt. So today we talked to Maddie Kertay of BadAss Quilters Society. She's like a superhero. She's incredible. She's incredible. Incredible in every way. Like, she's rebuilding her house on her own. She takes care of neonatal kittens. She was an incredible quilter. She's got a huge following. She's got it all going. I need to just immerse myself in her world and become a better person. But we're going to start today.
Hi, I'm Maddie Kertay, and I'm calling from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Awesome. And what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
My first memory of someone sewing and quilting, my mother sewed, but she didn't really do it when we were around. But I do remember very distinctly when my neighbor was pregnant, and I have this really incredible memory of following them down the hall. My mother's sewing machine was back in her bedroom, and the woman had either ripped or something had happened to her maternity blouse. And it was this white piqué kind of textured thing with little blue sailboats on it. Yeah. And I remember being fascinated watching, and they walked down there to the sewing machine to do something. And I don't remember anything after that, but that's kind of my first sewing-related memory, is in relation to the, kind of the wider world out there.
That's so cool.
After that, I did end up teaching myself to sew, though.
Yeah, you did? How old were you? How old? How much longer after that in memory? Were you a teenager or a grown-up? When did you start sewing?
No, I was somewhere in the range of 9 to 10, somewhere in there. I keep trying to figure out and pinpoint exactly when it was. My mother had stopped sewing. My mother suffered from pretty ravaging depression. And the sewing machine was in one of those wooden cabinets, kind of a very 1960s wooden cabinet, and it was in the corner of the living room. And one day, I actually had forgotten all about it and was sitting on the floor, as kids do, watching TV, and I leaned back and looked up under it, and there was this thing in there, and it was like, oh my gosh, that's a sewing machine. And I opened it up, and I asked my mom if I could use it, and she said, sure, but I'm not going to teach you. Like I said, she was in a really bad place personally. As a kid, didn't understand that, but as an adult, much more, real reality to that. And so I opened one of the drawers, and there was little bobbins and all stuff. I didn't know what anything was, but I pulled out the book, and it was a Bernina sewing machine. It turns out my dad had gotten it for her when she'd gotten pregnant with me. And so I learned how to use it from reading the book. And I still have that machine, and I have the book still even. And I have
amazing.
all the little marks that I made in it that the right places to turn the knobs and stuff like that would actually make stitches that looked like something. And so I marked all over the book, and I still have it. So that's kind of fun.
That's totally cool. So then when did you start quilting?
I'm actually a really late quilter. So I'm 50 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be 51 in January.
Cool.
I have been formally quilting maybe 10 years. Maybe, yeah, about 10 years.
So about 2008, you think, you were starting to quilt?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So what was happening? So this is so weird, because around 2006, 2007, 2008, people start quilting. There's a thing happening. Why did you start quilting in 2008?
For me, actually, and I'm sure that this is probably what, I'd be interested in how this works, but I saw something on the internet.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody's story starts that way.
Yeah.
I met my husband on the internet.
That's so cool. Yeah.
So I saw a website and Film in the Fridge. And there were quilts there that all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. And it looked really accessible. Now, I had sewn forever. I made wedding dresses. I did everything like that. But I just wasn't a quilter, big air quotes around it.
Yeah.
I actually made some baby blankets and different things like that. And I sewed for my children. And but I saw this and it was like, oh, that's really accessible. That looks friendly. That looks doable. And so I started kind of, I had all the fabric, had all the stuff. And so I thought, well, I could do that. And so I did it.
And how did you learn at that point?
Since I already knew how to sew, it really wasn't a big leap. And as anybody will tell you, I pretty much believe I can do anything.
I like that.
I'm currently in the middle of remodeling a whole house myself.
Wow.
Some people are like, oh, you're remodeling. Who's doing it for you? I'm like, no. I'm the one. I've ripped out all the walls. I've put in all the plaster.
Wow.
I've done all the plumbing.
That is
all
so
that kind
cool.
of stuff. So
I love it.
So sewing, I already knew how to sew. So it was just sewing stuff together in a different way.
Got it.
So I never thought I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I did.
That's so cool. I love it.
Now, that being said, I have the world's worst 1/4 inch. I do. I am rubbish with a 1/4 inch. And I am rubbish with a pattern. I am definitely a eclectic, self-taught, more I make what I want to make instead of using somebody else's patterns.
Very cool. If I go to, so tell me a little bit about BadAss Quilter Society. And are there pictures of your quilts online? Where do I find them as we talking?
You know what? I'll have to dig. There's definitely some if you go back through the pages. On BadAss Quilter or through the photos.
Yeah.
There. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's pollen out here. So there's definitely there. There's ones that have hung in shows. I've been really lucky. My quilt, one of my quilts I was the American guest at a French exhibition.
Really?
So my quilt got to go to my quilt got to go to France. I did not.
Oh. That is so very cool. So okay, you have
very cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, so it's a quilt called Roy G. Biv, and it's a whole cloth quilt, and it was a dedication to my husband, and I made it, and it hung in my store for a long time, and so you could probably find it up there somewhere on the BadAss Quilter Society page.
All right. Would you have named it? Because I'm looking for it, and I can't find it. I can do a search.
Yeah, its name is Roy G. Biv, as like the acronym for the colors of the rainbow. And it is a large wall hanging at 60 by 60. Actually, it's actually very funny. It was actually supposed to be, it's actually 58 by 58. It was supposed to be 60 by 60, and then I quilted it so much and so intensely, it actually shrunk itself down out of the category that I was going to enter it in.
That's so funny.
In a show, which is really funny. And I could not stretch it back out for love or money. It's called Roy G. Biv, and it's out there someplace. There's a lot of pictures somewhere.
Cool. Well, I'll take a look. I can't find. How do you spell his? How do you spell the last name?
Oh, Biv, B-I-V. So it's red, orange, yellow.
Red, orange, yellow.
Green, blue, indigo, violet.
Indigo, violet. And then G before that?
Yeah, G, yeah, because green is in the center. Yep.
Right. Okay, let's see. Oh, I see. Okay, now I still can't find it. Such a dork. All right. Red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, violet.
Let me see if I
maybe
can.
Maybe I'm getting there.
I'll get in front of my computer here and see.
Yeah, it's not working. I can't get to it.
Yeah, so it's a big whole cloth quilt, and with tons and tons of really intense quilting on it.
All right, hold on.
Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Oddly enough, I think it might actually be.
No, I still can't find it. See, I told you it wasn't hard-hitting journalism. It's more like shopping sometimes.
That's okay. Let's see. Oh, so if you go on to, I'm not sure if it's here, but if you go on to Pinterest and put my name in,
okay,
you will find lots of my quilts.
All right, cool. I'll do that.
Yeah. So I was trying to see if Roy is up here. I see lots. Like there's other people's stuff in here that's like, this was inspired by, or whatever. I like to really intensely quilt the snot out of stuff.
You do?
I enjoy. Yeah, I really. I quilt a lot. I have a long arm.
Yes. What kind of long arm do you use?
I have a Handy Quilter Avante.
Oh, cool.
Roy is here. He is up on this page here. Hold on, I'm actually going to shoot it to you on Facebook.
Right. Cool.
The link.
Awesome.
Hold on for a second here. Yeah, so, like most things, I am totally, like, I jump in 2 feet and a head dive. I mean, really, it's like, so I started quilting again. I told my wonderful husband, I have the world's best husband. I told him, I said, I think I'd really like to get a new sewing machine. And so I went and we bought this really amazing sewing machine, this Bernina sewing machine. And then like 3 weeks later, I finished a really pretty big quilt. And I was like, I think I want a long arm now. And he's like, okay.
I like that.
He was like, yeah, he's the best ever.
That's so great.
He is. He's awesome. And so then I got a long arm. So I've got a Handy Quilter Avante. That actually led to me being one of Handy Quilters' ambassadors.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I spent a year. I spent a year doing that.
And what was that like?
Cool.
What was being a Handy Quilt ambassador? And how did they find you? Were you like how? Take us through this process of what this means.
So that was, you know what, it was when they first started the ambassadorship programs. At the time I bought my machine, and the people I bought it from casually mentioned that Handy Quilter was having an event, and you write to this address. They gave me a little slip of paper and tell them why you bought a Handy Quilter machine, basically, and why you were quilting, and that they were giving away extra prizes that would go with the machines, like extra accessories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So I wrote this little thing about how that I always thought I was too young to be a quilter, and just as a throwaway thing, it was like 3 paragraphs, nothing big. Shot it off in the email. Didn't think about it again. A couple of weeks later, I get this phone call. And it's a woman named Brenda, who's a lovely woman who still works for Handy Quilter. And she said, she introduced herself, and she said, you might want to sit down. And I was like, huh? And so I went to a different room because my family, I've got 6 kids. I mean, everything's always really noisy. And she says, so you have been chosen as one of our national winners, and we would like to fly you to Utah.
Wow.
And do all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, holy moly, wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah, because at that point I'd had my long arm for maybe a month. I mean, it had not been very long
That's
at
so
all.
great. Now, can I ask you what year is this? I'm really curious about years at the moment.
Let's see.
It was like 2009?
It should be somewhere in there. It might be later than that.
Interesting.
Let me see if I can see when that was. I'm really ridiculously bad at when things happen.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
So when
I needed that for a year.
That?
I found the.
Yeah, I did that for.
I found it, by the way.
It's
gorgeous. Oh my gosh, I have questions.
Oh, thank you.
That's really cool.
Yeah, like if you go up there on Pinterest, there's lots of them. There's a lot of quilts that I really enjoy doing, but like I said, I just slap stuff together. I mean, I have no rhyme or reason. I go in and I just start cutting up fabric.
It's so cool.
And putting it back together again.
I love your you did traditional hexes, the flowers, but then you put it's just so gorgeous. Your stuff is gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, and each quilt really has kind of a story behind it, in that, like, it was, there was an impetus usually to why a certain quilt. And usually it was basically, each one of my quilts is pretty much a middle finger to the world, of you can't do this or you can't do that. And I'm like, watch me.
That's really cool.
I'll go do that. Go do that, definitely. But
the quilt that we were talking about before, I'll if you're cool with it, I'll post it. You'll have a web page on our website. tell us a little bit about how you made this, because it's so pretty and it's so interesting. Is it whole? You said it's whole cloth? It doesn't look like whole cloth.
It is a whole cloth.
It's amazing.
It is a whole cloth, yeah. So I made it. So basically how I started off with was this really large piece of white Kona snow fabric. Could have been anything, but that's just what I happened to have had. And then I used like the traditional method of a tack in the center and a string and a pencil, except it was one of the like blue fabric markers. And I made a big circle, and then I subdivided all of that off. And then in each section, I did a different kind of stitch in a different color.
That's really cool.
And went around. It was a really scary quilt to do in that, of course, I'd never done anything like it before. And second, because since I did all the work in the center, the outside, of course, ruffled because, of course, you're taking up so much of the fabric. And it was so intensely quilted that the outer edges all like ruffled up. They look like a peony.
Oh my goodness!
But I was able. I quilted into that area also equally intensely, and it all flattened out. It's a wonderfully flat quilt.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Was there a bit of panic when that was happening?
Quilt. You know what? There really wasn't, because I thought, okay, so what am I going to do if this stays ruffled up out here like this? I said, well, I'm just going to cut the whole thing free and then apply it back down onto something else. Because for me, it's just fabric. It really is. I mean, my fabric, and it's. Sure, there's a certain amount of cost, and there's definitely cost to my time. But honestly, I know people freak out about people like using their quilts or whatever. In fact, one of the biggest articles I ever wrote was called "You Can Have Sex on My Quilt," and
I totally like that.
I have these patches that I actually sell when I have my store open that says you may have sex on this quilt.
I like that.
And the people put it on the back of it because people are always so
right. They're like, this is too precious. I can't do anything with it. That's right. Right. And that's so funny. All right, I have like 1,000 things.
Me, it's just fabric.
Yeah. So I have 1,000 things to ask you. I actually have a list. So you were quilting, you took to it. How hard was it to become like you're already an ambassador, and your work is gorgeous. It really is gorgeous. How did that happen? Are you just like that artistic, or did you practice, or like when people look at your work, are they like, can we get to where you are? Is there any way, or is it just an artistic thing?
Oh, no, I think anybody can get there. I think you have to not give a flying frick. I mean, I didn't worry about ruining anything. I watched people get so knotted up, especially when I had the store, that they would ruin something. If nobody who's ever made great art has given a flip about the thing, they know that it comes and goes. It's, a great canvas is only a great canvas at a certain point. There could be a point where it goes, all the hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
So it's just fabric. I don't have any great reverence for it in that way. So if it all goes, there's quilts that I've honestly just balled up and thrown in the trash.
That's nice to hear.
Or cut up into small bits and then given to the kennel for dog rescue.
Interesting. That's great.
Just because it went really wrong. And I'm like, okay, so I learned something from that. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So I think anybody can do that, because when you look at children are amazing artists, and they have full confidence. It's when somebody starts messing with them that things change.
Yeah. Let me ask you one more question about this quilt. Again, there'll be pictures on it. There's some parts that have a bit of blue, or like it's intensely quilted, but then there are other pieces that have like a bit of color in it. How did you do that?
Yes.
Did you paint it, or did you applique?
I did. Well, essentially I used what are called ink tense, TENSE, ink tense pencils, and they are a fabric stable watercolor sort of pencil. And so there were just areas that I felt like I wanted to add a little bit more zip to, and so I went in and painted into those areas with the
very
pencils.
Interesting. That's great.
There is actually a secret cat splat stain on that quilt. Nobody else can see it except me, but I had the quilt laid out, and I was doing something on the other side of the room, and all of a sudden I heard, anybody who's got a cat knows that horking noise they make before they throw up a hairball. And I knew that noise, and I spun around just in time to watch the cat jump from the floor, from the hardwood floor, up onto the quilt and throw up.
Gosh.
But I cleaned it up, and I was just like, and I thought, I was like, what if this doesn't come out? I'm like, okay, well, that looks kind of like okay, I'll color that if that doesn't come out.
I like that. Oh, my goodness. Practicality is art. Art is about practicality. All right, so I have 1,000 questions, and see, we're not going to go a half hour. Just not going to happen. So, BadAss Quilting Society, tell me about that.
BadAss Quilting Society has been around forever, however long. Like I said, horrible at dates. I'd have to go back and look at our founding date. We have close to, I think we have 29,000 members.
Oh, my gosh. That's craziness.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I'm actually really on sabbatical this year because I decided to take a year off. So I pop in over there and I visit with people and stuff like that, but we're not actively producing content right now. So there's lots and lots of back content to look at, definitely so, and we still get more members every day. But it was really created as this place that was this safe harbor for all the quilters who did not feel like they fit someplace else.
Yeah.
Or that people, gave the side eye to when they came to the guild meetings or whatever. And we just have this amazing group of people who are super supportive. Although great. I say we welcome everybody, we really do. We definitely have a very aggressively liberal underpinning.
That's great. Yeah.
So people are like, well, I'm not welcome here. I said, you're absolutely welcome here, but I'm not going to stop talking about my support of Planned Parenthood or gay rights or anything like that
so funny,
for your comfort.
Because we're getting that now. So I'm, when Hillary didn't get elected, I made like 25 pink hats and just kept making them angry crocheting every night.
Angry hats.
Right, angry hats, like crying, screaming, mad, whatever. So anyway, and so we've been interviewing all kinds of really interesting people, including the founder of the Pink Hat, the Pussy Hat movement, and all these other things. So, yeah, so cool. And
I made a quilt for her.
What? You made a quilt for her? Yeah, you did?
Yes, she commissioned a quilt for her second book that goes with her second book. I made her quilt for her.
No way. That's so cool.
Way.
Oh my God. You're
totally
so cool.
Way.
So anyway, but I'm getting all these now, not all, but a few people saying like, well, you shouldn't be so political. And I was like, well, I am. So I don't know. Yeah. So just skip that one or whatever. Like this is a research project, and protest quilting and craft activism is really part of what's happening right now. So and I'm totally, I've got a non-binary kid that's way into art, and so they're now thinking about doing something. And I just think like that's like part of, it's what you're saying. It's part of, what I like about BadAss Quilters is that you really are putting it out there to say like, it's an inclusive and inclusive in the way of like a lot of people who feel like they're not included in other spaces. That would be, everyone's welcome.
And I've never run off anybody who wants to fly there, who says, well, I'm Republican. And I'm like, well, great, good for you. Right. Everybody has a right to be what they want here.
Yeah.
I said, but I'm not going to stop doing these things. And there have been times that, and honestly, what that has lost me is business sponsorships.
Really? I wondered about that. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I would say that is probably the bigger reason why I was dropped from Handy Quilter. Is because they're a very conservative, Mormon-based organization.
Right. They didn't want that as part of their message.
No, they didn't want that, and that's their right. So, I've always said that's their right. Yeah. But being told that, we really, really, really like you, but we can't work with you.
Yeah.
Because you would offend our population.
Right.
Or having, and it's still true. I've got like the presidents of some of the like biggest sewing companies who call me and talk to me and ask me questions and different stuff like that. But they're like, but we can't.
Do you think that's the name? Do you think that's because of your name?
There's a small bit of it that is because it is BadAss. Because like when we did our event with AQS, with American Quilt Society, because we sponsored an event with them, the president at the time was all on board. Well, it turns out that the founder was then not on board, but they'd already signed a contract with us. They kept trying to hide our signs and do stuff like that, and our followers were amazing. They kept sneaking the sign back out, and
so
all
funny.
kinds of stuff. I mean, it was amazing. But so it's like badass. Well, never in my wildest dreams did I even fathom that was something that was bad.
Controversial.
I mean, when I think of badass, I think of like Clint Eastwood. Not that he's a really great person, but to his character.
Right.
I don't think of it as being something offensive, but then I also have a really, really horrible mouth. So
that's good, though. I mean, that's okay. So that's really interesting. Oh, I have thousands of questions. So on your BadAss Quilter Society logo, you have TM. Have you done what way did you want to protect it? That's clearly telling the world that that's protected. Tell me about your thoughts about that side of it.
I teeter this incredible, like I think everybody else does. Intellectual property, things that people have come up with. We have been challenged multiple times for BadAss Quilter Society, and which is a really big pain in the tail because it means every time I have to call my lawyer and I have to pay money.
Right.
Because if I don't defend it, I could lose it. Somebody else could use it.
Did you guys register it did you do a federal registration?
Yeah, I had to. My lawyer did all that fun stuff for me. I can actually technically, I haven't gone and updated the logo. I guess I could technically use the R.
That's right. That's why I was asking.
I can use the R in the circle, and when I get kind of back into things, because of course that's the hard side of being kind of like this. Although I'm not always a one-woman show, but 99% everything you have to do.
I know. I know. It's a lot of work. It's a lot.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so we've been challenged on BadAss a couple different times.
In what way?
People putting our logo on stuff and trying to sell it.
Really?
Or putting a very similar logo on something. And the nifty part is that although not the biggest following in the world, because you look at stars or different people have way more people. But when you have close to 30,000 people who are watching your back, they're like, "Hey, I didn't know you had that product."
Totally.
And they're like, "This is kind of odd," and they'll send me a picture from a quilt show or whatever. And I don't think I've actually ever personally run into a thing myself that hasn't been brought to me by somebody who's one of our members.
It's so interesting, isn't it? We're getting a little bit. We have a teeny tiny group, but I think we're at, I can't remember, almost 1,500 people, which is still for a research project kind of cool. And it's amazing to see. Right, they're like your family. They're they got your back. They're better than the family, right? They're like your friend family. So they're just the coolest, They
are the coolest. The funny part is they're sometimes more bulldoggy than you are.
Yeah.
I mean, because they hear somebody say something and they're just like. And sometimes they go ahead and they rip into the other person themselves, but sometimes, unfortunately, they come back to you. Yeah. And they say, blank, blank, blank is saying bad things about you. And I'm like, well, blank, blank, blank is just going to have to go ahead and say bad things. Because,
That's really great.
There's only so many swords I can swing at a time.
Right, right.
That way.
So
but
interesting.
I've had other companies have been amazing. Because, I worked with Philtech Glide. They've had my back the whole time. They've been just amazing. So some companies have, but other companies have been, and so that limited the economic potential in that way.
Yeah.
But the industry is so flippin' stingy anyway that I just decided that didn't matter.
That didn't matter. That's really interesting.
That there was other ways for me to make money with that. And there was, and I did well, especially just even logo merchandise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That I didn't have to do that, and I also didn't have to, pardon the phrase, bend over for those companies who said, "Oh, you can't say these things."
That's really great.
Or you can't be that. And I was just like, no, I'm still going to say those things. And because I had companies who would say, "Okay, we want to work with you, but you've got to go out and clean all these different posts off your website."
Yeah. Well, that's not who you are. I mean, that's just
it's not.
It's your brand. I mean, that's your branding. So, they should be wanting you as you, because that's the point, right? They should be wanting to reach your audiences who like you for who you are.
I know, but it's more of be you like this.
Yeah. No, I know.
You know.
I know. Well, you know what? It's so funny because I don't usually talk about this, but I worked professionally as an actor when I was in college because I looked 12, and I was, and my family lived in LA, and I secured a pilot, which was really great, and then they were like, so they liked me because I was quirky, and then when it got picked up, they dropped me because they were like, well, you're kind of too quirky. I was like, you know what? That's okay because you know what?
Too quirky.
You hired me because I was the quirkiest thing you could find. So now you don't want me? That's fine. Devastating at 19 because you don't really understand that. But I also just thought, you know what? That's, and of course it didn't, it did get on air and it didn't last very long and it was really, really, really vanilla. Like they had taken all of the kind of fun goofiness out of it. But yeah, I get it.
And because that's fear. That's fear speaking. What I understand is whenever I hear that, I hear fear.
Yeah, me too.
And
me too.
And right now in the quilt industry, as far as like the business part of it, it is all fear.
Why do you think that is?
Oh gosh, because quilting, and somebody's going to shoot me up one of those, so there'll be some sort of like a death threat. Quilting is not necessary.
Right, it's not. It's extra.
It is not.
Right.
It doesn't. It is a hobby. It is. There was a time, yes, when Grandma had to do that so that you had a blanket on your bed, so that you stayed warm at night. But you don't need it anymore. It is a luxury sport.
Yeah.
And so if it's between feeding your kids or paying daycare or buying diapers or having money in your retirement account, which one are you going to do? So there's just less play for it right now. In many ways, only because the industry expanded so much bigger. At one time it was a very doable industry but then people were like, oh, that looks like maybe you can make some money there, and so bigger companies cropped up and they expanded and they got bigger, and now there are all these behemoths that need to be fed,
right?
And there's not enough people out there buying.
That's really interesting.
Which is what it is.
So tell me a little bit about on the BadAss Quilter Society website, it has the speakeasy. Tell me about the speakeasy.
So the speakeasy right now is closed. I think it probably should say that on there. We had a horrible crash and some of the pages have gone away. And honestly, I've been like, I'll deal with that later. And back to that one-woman show again. But the speakeasy was basically, it was my alternative to working for companies. So it was the private backdoor secret code word to get in, and your secret code word came attached with dollars. So it was a private club. People could join. They paid per month. And so they got private content with me, chats, other offers that I worked up with different companies, discounts, different stuff like that. Just a little more badass, a little bit more personal.
Interesting.
And which was really great. I ended up getting sick. I have an undisclosed, we don't even know what it is, autoimmune problem that's like lupus. And I got pretty sick, so I closed it down, only because I could not deliver the kind of content I wanted.
Yeah.
The nifty thing is that I was like, okay, everybody, here's the deal. I am really sick. I can't continue to do this.
Yeah.
Everybody at the end of this month needs to turn off their PayPal to me. And because otherwise I have to go in and do each one, and we have like 400 people over there. And which doesn't sound like a lot,
but it's a lot. It's a lot.
400 people
who
are willing to pay that amount of money. Well, half of them wouldn't turn their thing off. They're like, no, we want you to still have money.
Oh, that's so nice.
And it was like,
people are like amazing, right? They're like amazing.
That was so cool. They're like, you know what? This is only, two Starbucks a month. This is not. They were like, that's okay. And so finally I was like, oh, that's very sweet of you all, but I can't accept that. And so I went in and manually started turning them all off.
That's very sweet. That's so sweet. That's so great.
They knew my email address and they kept shoving money in it.
That's so sweet.
So they were really nice. But it was, and I will at some point open it back up again. In fact, we put up that, and we're actually going to increase the cost. The original people will all get in at their original amount. But it's a way for it to, not only for BadAss to cover its costs, but also to make a living at it. So, I mean, because, my choice is doing that or, something else.
Right.
So if they want that content, they got to pay for it.
All right. So did you...
people pay for Netflix.
People pay for Netflix, right? And it was on your website.
Yeah.
It was like $10 a month, and you felt like people would. You had 400 loyal people that were willing to do that.
Yeah,
and that's really cool. And that was from your. So I'm trying to understand sort of the economics and the sort of structure of this. You already had the Facebook group that's had like 26,000 people, right?
Yes.
And then from that group, you had about 400 that were willing to pay for extra service, extra stuff from you because they adored you so much and they loved what you were doing. Is that right?
You know what? What they adored is they adored building a community where people had their backs and understood them.
It was a community.
And
it was about a
community. It was in the context of quilting, but quilting was really the smallest part of it, really.
It was the community.
But they had this safe place like that,
Interesting.
So, yes, so 400 of them were willing to come do that part.
That's really interesting. It's about community. So that's so interesting. Do you think, because there's a lot of people that now have these subscription services, and I'm really curious as, like, that's one of the things that's happening, right? Is everyone's like, oh, let's make a subscription service. What do you think made yours successful? Like, why? Like, I think sometimes people think it isn't about the community. It's about sort of the products. But you're saying it's not. It's about them all feeling like it's their space, it's their clubhouse. We keep talking about wanting a clubhouse, but it was like their virtual clubhouse to spend time together.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely it is, because it is still technically, for all of the people who stayed, there is actually still a private page that they can get into, and they still post there on a fairly regular basis.
That's really great.
Because they have become friends, they've networked, they've done all the things. I think it is always about community. Community and the feeling you get is first. The product after that, while important, because, I mean, I had a retail store, and but people, when they talk about it still to this day, they're like, the feeling I would get when I would walk in there.
Right.
They don't always, they're like, they attribute where those feelings came from, but it was the feeling that they got.
Yeah.
Not, because my fabric wasn't cheap. It was more expensive than anybody else's, but it was the feeling they got.
So tell us a little bit about the store.
So I had Spool here in Chattanooga. I opened Spool up as an arm of BadAss Quilter Society. I would have never named it BadAss Quilter Society, but that's my legal business name. And so the funny part is when I went to go do the business license in town, they're like, "You're not going to name your store that, are you?" And I went, and she said, honestly, because we had BadAss Coffee, which I guess is out of Hawaii. We had BadAss Coffee here in town, and it got run out of town on a rail.
Really?
People protested it.
Oh, my goodness. That's so crazy.
Find something better to get uptight about.
That's
but anyway,
so
she
funny.
said, it was terrible. She said, we get complaints every week.
Really?
About the name.
That's so funny. So you did not go with BadAss Quilters, you went to Spools, which seems very...
We were Spool, very generic and stuff like that in its name. Now, if you had gone to the website, you would know that we were definitely not generic. I mean, we were, the only business that I know of in town actually who actively promoted Pride.
That's great.
And stuff like that.
Great.
And I mean, we got, for other people who were like, they would never darken our door.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't darken my door until I went out of business, and they came for the 50% off sale.
Of course.
And I felt free to poke at everybody people who I knew were like, interesting. 50% off gets you to side with the devil, huh?
Right. That's so interesting, isn't it? Yes.
But yeah, so it was an amazing store. But for family reasons, I closed because I could not fully mom and do the things that I needed to do here for my family at the time that were necessary, and run a store to the caliber that I could.
Yeah.
Our store, we were really lucky. Less than the second year in business, we were already chosen for Quilt Sampler magazine, top shop of the year.
Amazing.
And
you're amazing.
So it was a fabulous shop. I loved it. But honestly, I also saw where the industry was going, and I know how many shops have gone out of business since then. In fact, the thing that I have done since then is I have actually worked as a business consultant to individual quilt shops who have been closing so that they can get their most money out of their store.
Interesting. We've got one here that's happening too. It's really interesting. They're trying to go online now, and I worry about them. I don't know. I just worry.
Unless you've already got a really, really heavy online presence. I was really lucky because that was one of the things, because we always were in profit. We did fabulous that way. I was really, really lucky. The amount of time it takes from your life is not so lucky.
No, it's a lot.
That is really, really, really difficult. But that being said, since I already had BadAss in the first place, the first day we opened up, we had 40 online orders.
That's amazing.
So, I mean,
yeah,
we were able to do that. But to go from not having it or having a little bit, that's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competition out there in that market. And you have to really be all about the social media to make that work.
Yeah, it's huge. And do you think that's part of sort of your success, is that you have had that social media presence as part of your identity, that it started with Facebook and did it start at Facebook? Is that where you started, or did you start some?
It did start. It started with Facebook. Pretty soon, right off of the bat, of course, I went and bought. My husband tells the story of me yelling from the other room, asking him if he would look up and see if BadAss Quilter Society was available as a domain.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay, sweetie." Because he's like, "Sure, go ahead, baby."
That's great.
But yeah, so building that place where people found their connection was definitely the starting spot.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Hold on just a second. I think I might have just made a... Oh, no, that's good. Okay, so tell me about your birthday, because I followed your birthday this year. It was awesome. Tell me about your BadAss birthday celebration.
Oh, gosh. So which one? So this past year?
I think so. Yeah.
Was it this past year? So, depending on what it is, I mean, I always celebrate for a full month.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And when we have had BadAss celebrations, we celebrate big. If you're talking about the celebration of like each time BadAss has grown, was it when we did when
it was about turning 50. When you turned 50, didn't you have a lot of stuff going on?
Yeah, we did. Well, each time, so we've done it every time. Well, for a while we did it each time we doubled. So the first time I did it was when we were at 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Then I did it 2,000, and then 4,000, and then it started getting a little harder because then you're at 6,000 and 12,000 and stuff like that.
Right.
So each one of those times, I would reach out to companies who I worked with, and they would send me lots of amazing stuff, including like one time, one of our birthdays, I can't remember which one it was, they all blend together after a while, Bernina actually logoed up machines for us with BadAss Quilter Society.
That's so cool. That's so amazing.
Yeah. So that's great. We've worked with Sizzix before, and they've given machines to everybody.
So how did you approach these sponsors? Because what do they see? Obviously, they see an economic benefit to partnering with you or to doing these sorts of things. But how does that happen exactly?
Gosh, you know what? I would say that a lot of that networking happened ahead of time when I'd be at Quilt Market.
Yeah.
So being at Quilt Market, you're meeting the people behind the brands.
Yeah.
And you're kind of learning who they are. And so some companies are willing to work with you, and some of them are absolutely not willing to work with you because, again, they're scared.
Yeah. Do you think that they were willing to work with you because why? Because you have a really interesting background. Was it the Facebook group that was so large? Was it because you were you were award-winning quilter? Is it that because you already had the handicraft ambassadorship before? Do you think it's a combination of all of these things, or do you think what are they looking at that allowed them they wanted to do things for you?
They are totally looking at numbers. They are mercenary, cutthroat. There is nothing warm or fuzzy about it.
Yeah.
When I go to a company and say, look, this is how many views I get every day.
Yeah.
Especially when we're doing those events, because those events are crazy.
Yeah.
How many, hundreds of thousands of views we get today, or how many shares, or how many, whatever statistic it is that they want. I gather all those statistics together, slap them into a PDF, and say, here's how much exposure your brand's going to get.
Right.
For this kind of exposure, if you want to be part of the plan, and I just lay it all out, and I'm like, if you want to do it, great. If you don't, fantastic. I don't care.
Right.
That way. And so I require them not only to put up goods, but to pay me.
Really
because it takes a lot of time to put together events like that.
Yeah.
But people love it. They get so excited. Now, there's always the person who whinges on, and, that with that much stuff, not just 2 people should win, and I should give away 97 different thousand things. I'm like, do you understand how hard it is to mail out 97,000 things?
Totally.
Let alone how much it costs. It's like crazy. I mean, my postage bills are astronomical.
Are they? That was the other thing I was wondering about, because we are thinking. So we have a booth at Quilt Festival this year, which is super great. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we're trying to do is think about. I think we're going to try to do a scavenger hunt with all the different people that have been on the show and sort of see what other things. But I was a little bit worried about mailing prizes if we can't. So that was my this could get out of hand. So.
Yeah, and so depending on what you do, I mean, because sometimes, so that I quickly learned, because, you always, pain is always your best motivator when you learn, because the first time I did not ask the people who donated stuff to cover the cost of the postage, and I learned really quickly because I ended up eating all that cost.
Right.
And that stuff's heavy. Because if it doesn't fit in, a certain thing. Right. So I learned to have my vendors cover the cost of postage.
Oh, that's super, super interesting.
On that end. Yeah. And if there was another way to do it, then I got people like gift certificates, because then that could just go in by regular mail.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
And that way people could also pick out their own stuff and stuff like that. Now, the thing really is that most companies, and, like a lot of companies that I would work with, they really wanted, because they've got products sitting around.
Right.
They really just want to give
want the
a ton of products.
Right, because you're just part of their marketing budget, so it's easy to give you stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really easy, and that's what they have the freedom to do, is to give you lots of stuff, whereas getting approval to pay you
is harder.
That's like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Way harder.
Yeah, it's funny because we've got...
You can give you thread till you bleed to death. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, for me, so this is an experiment, right? So we've gotten a good amount of in-kind donations, and for the university, they're quite pleased by that. So we have a mandate to be revenue producing, meaning that we don't have to ask the provost for money in 2 years, so that's fine. But they count for the Tulane, for the metrics, the donations count. So as a successful project. So that's really interesting for me. You know what I mean? To hear that's an easier thing.
You could totally get that, because even if it's even small, I was really amazed. Even smaller brands, really, because they know how much it costs them to make something, or whatever, and then the value of getting it out there. So I was really, especially because I have a really big heart for those small companies. I mean, I work with big companies too. I'm not, I'm not stupid, but I really spent a lot of time giving that extra social media love to the small companies.
That's really great.
Because, I mean, I know how hard they are working, to get their product out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. It's so true. And it's amazing how many people are really trying to make a go of this. Now, what did you do? So you closed down the shop, and you closed down the speakeasy. So what are you doing now?
Yep.
What's going on now? And you have how do you balance? The other thing is, how do you balance your life with kids? I have one kid and my dad who lives with us, and it's very challenging, I have to say. So,
definitely. So, since closing down the store, I kind of really concentrated on my family. And my kids are much older. My oldest one is almost 30.
That's great.
And my youngest one is 17.
So that helps.
So I just have one kid at home anymore. And in fact, we just bought a new house that I'm remodeling.
Oh, right.
So
that's
we
what you're
sold
up
our
to.
old,
That's
really
right.
big house that had been the size for 6 kids. And we bought a smaller house, although this one, I mean, it's not a small house, it's just smaller. Our previous house was about 5,000 square feet. This one's about 2,500. So this one still has, I'm going to have a really large studio. My husband has an office. He works at home. So it's big, but it was also in really desperately bad shape. So at this point, as of, technically March of this past March, I took a thing that I'm on sabbatical, and I'm taking a year to remodel the house.
That's really great. That's really awesome.
So I get up every day and I work it like a job. I mean, I'm working by 8:30 in the morning and then quit by theoretically 6, but a lot of times I work later than that. And so I'm, doing that. I share a lot of that over on Instagram, on my Instagram account, and have a lot of people over there,
watching and helping.
Doing that. My other thing is I raise neonatal kittens for the local rescue.
We do.
I do.
How old are they? We are little kittens?
Newborns. Tiny as the palm of my hand.
Yes.
Like 90 to 100 grams.
Yes,
my favorite phrase is that we did one that was 69 grams the other day.
Oh my gosh!
And somebody said, "How much is 69 grams?" I said, "Well, it's a lot of cocaine and not a lot of kittens."
It's totally true. We've been doing foster kitten rescue, not the teeniest, tiniest, but we get them at about 3 or 4 weeks that are still. They've already they've survived the critical stage of that super tiny. But they're still under 5 ounces sometimes, right? So they're tiny, So, and now we've got.
They are,
They're amazing, right?
How many?
We were up to. We did 6 one time. That was too many. So.
Yes.
How many do you have at a time?
Well, that honestly depends on the litter size.
Yeah.
So I specialize, for lack of a better word, in really thick kittens or preemies.
That's amazing.
If really thick ones come in, you need, because I'm certified to do subcutaneous fluid and tube feeding and that kind of stuff. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. How did you get certified to do that?
You know what? My local rescue. I started working with them, and then I started basically haranguing my local vet. And talking to them and saying, I want to learn these things. I want to learn these things. And he's like, well, hey, there's actually a training for this, or he'll just kind of slip me some information. And he's like, oh, you want to learn this, or you want to do that thing.
Wow. Because those little ones, what's the rate of survival for them? Because see, we were doing it, and my kid at the time, who was 14, they were really careful with us with the rescue, because we did have a couple of kitten deaths, and it was kind of, brutal. But it was part of the, the life and death cycle and all that. But what's your, how hard, are you losing a lot of them, or because all of this, you're able to save more of them?
Oh gosh, you know what? That's really a difficult number, because just flat out in the wild, they only have a 50% chance. Okay, so we know that right off the top. After that, I definitely lose them. I lost a litter of 5 about a week ago because they all had some horrible something that, on top of being the fact that they had had terrible fleas, so they'd become anemic. And there was just not a way. My rescue, the one thing I can't do and the rescue doesn't do, because it doesn't have a budget for it, is doing blood transfusions.
Yeah.
And that's really the only thing that will save a severely anemic kitten, is a blood transfusion.
Interesting.
So I lost that whole litter to anemia.
That's
in that. So which is always really hard. But that being said, I have the best time. In fact, I just put one up on my personal Facebook page. That's Rumpus. Rumpus is up there. Rumpus came to me at 69 grams and cold and stiff.
Oh my goodness.
People think they know what they're doing, and my biggest thing is kind of getting information out there to people.
Yeah.
Is kittens need to be 100 degrees. Our body temperature is not even enough for most kittens.
That's really interesting.
They need a heating pad. They need all those things that they need. And they can't drink cow's milk and all those things. So I spend a lot of time doing advocacy that way. I enjoy it. It's exhausting.
It's exhausting because they're babies. They're babies. It's back to that time when you're up in the middle of the night because they're right.
Oh yeah.
They're babies.
Oh, yeah. People say, I saw you online at 2 a.m. I said, yes, because I was putting a bottle in the baby's mouth. Now, you get really fast at it. I mean, I bet you do, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
my kid who's sitting here now with us, Sid, she is, amazing at the bottle situation. They really got it down,
They do, and they just suck, boom, And then, like, some of mine are burpers that they need a burp, and then they'll take some more. And so then, of course, then there's always the messy transfer up to getting them to eat, wet food.
Yeah.
And then, which is just a filthy, filthy stage.
Right.
Because they're always covered in it.
Yeah.
And so I really love it. It's very fulfilling for that part of my life. That was really important to me, is to find something like that to do. And I've been doing kitten rescue on and off for years and years, but the local rescue had done an outreach looking for people who could take really teeny tiny newborns, and which is always the hardest part because you're up every 2 hours.
Now,
not
once
a lot of
they
people
get
can do that.
Once they get bigger, do they go off to a different rescue person then once they're out of that crisis state?
Ideally they do, but no, we don't always have somebody who can do that.
Got it.
So because they've also taken, a certain amount of kittens that they have.
Right.
So when things are working correctly, yes, they'll move up to a next stage person. But that doesn't always happen, only just because there's just not enough bodies to go around.
Yeah. And then how do they stay till they're 2
people-
pounds? Is that how long they're staying at your place if they have to? Ours were staying till they were 2 pounds.
Yeah, mine stay till they're 6 weeks plus 2 pounds.
Yeah.
And then that's when they get fixed, and then they go back over to the facility to get shown off. Because we have a big, beautiful facility here to do that. I really work very hard to get them adopted via social media before they go back.
Oh, that's really good.
Because a lot of times the shelter facility, like respiratory virus will rip through there, and all the kittens will get sick or whatever.
Right.
So I want them to spend as little time there as humanly possible.
Yeah, we feel
after
that
I've
way
invested that time.
Yeah.
But I can just let them go then. I love them, and I love them back out into the world.
Yep, it's so funny because we were like, we've adopted, we had lost kittens, we had lost our cats that we had for like 20 years, but now we have, we're doing this for a while, and now we've got 2 that we've kept. But we always talked about we were branding them as super cuddly. So we always felt like we were getting them ready for their life, and that they were going to be these incredibly cuddly, loving things, and then they would get adopted really fast because, anytime because we have law students and Sid's friends are in, and so they're used to having lots of different people handle them, and so like we're all about their brand. Like they got to like be picked up, and that they start to be cuddly and purr and all that. So that was...
Well, and that's exactly it. From on my side, mine always go back to the facility if they do go back, because sometimes they do. If you've got 6 of them, it's hard to. There's only so many friends you have after a while.
Right,
that you
exactly.
can pawn off kittens on.
Right.
But mine are that my cards always say that I was raised around dogs.
That's great.
So because people worry about that a lot. Will it get along with my dog? I said, well, I can't promise it's going to get along with your dog, but our dogs cuddle with the kittens and are up next to the cage and stuff like that. So the cats aren't hissy at all around dogs.
That's really great.
So that helps them. And they noted there at the facility that having those kind of things, because people are always asking, like the providence of the cat.
Right.
So what can you tell me about this cat? As if it was like, fine wine.
Right, exactly.
You're like, well, a hot and hormonal mama cat and a daddy cat met up in an alley, and there's only so much you can say about a cute kitten. But at least I can say, it was hand raised.
Yeah.
It was been around dogs all the time. These are the foods that it likes.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So
that's
really fulfilling. Now the nifty part is that lots of my quilting peoples have turned into kitten peoples, and so they spend a lot of time supporting the rescue, and they send stuff. I have a kitten list up on Amazon for neonatal kittens, and they send the food and the milk and the toys and the emergency supplies for us to do rescue.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's another way of building community.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
That's really cool. I love it. It's so great. All right. Well, see, half hours is just not possible. It's just not possible. All right, so intellectual property. We talked a little bit about it. Any worries? Any thoughts about that?
Well, if you go back and look through my stuff, I have more than once gone back and said, people, this is what copyright means. This is what intellectual property means, to my best of my ability, because I am not a lawyer. But here's kind of the deal. And I was really upfront in especially when I had the store. I mean, I had this group of ladies who came up, and they each had one pattern, and they said, well, we'll go to Kinko's after this, and we'll copy them for Olive.
Right.
Then we'll make it. And I said, and I snatched them back up out of their hands and said, no, you won't.
Yeah.
I said, I would rather give you each one of these copies than have you go and break the law.
Yeah. And did they respond? Because I'm wondering if people...
They were just like stumbled. They just started stumbling over themselves.
They didn't know. Did you feel like they just didn't know?
No, they did know. They really did know.
They knew. They just got caught.
It's just us. It's just us.
Yeah.
Or my favorite one is like the high irony is when the church groups do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It's just like, this is stealing. I said, and I wrote an article about it, and it's up there somewhere. It says, if you are comfortable sneaking into my store, putting your hand in my till, and grabbing out a $20 bill and sneaking off, then please go ahead and make a copy of a pattern and
That's
give it
really
to your
great.
best friend.
Will you send me a link to that stuff? Is that on your... I can't quite find where that would be, that stuff.
I will find that and send that to you. That is probably... That's up on BadAss, and I'll send that to you.
Cool.
On... There we go. I will get online here and send you that.
I would love it.
But yeah, no. So that was just really, really important to me for the integrity, understanding, in that way.
Yeah.
So we understand more. There are always going to be people who cheat. I mean, that's all there is to it.
There are going to be bad actors. That's what I keep saying. It's like there's going to be bad actors regardless. You can't really focus your time on them because they're going to be bad and they're just going to be bad.
Yeah.
Regardless, you know.
No, they really are. That part is never really going to change. And my thing was really about the education of understanding why. And I think the most important thing is moving the why back is moving it all the way back to that one person, to that one woman, that one man, that one designer who is sitting at their kitchen table.
That's right.
And who has spent 50 hours,
right,
of their life making this thing and then sourcing it and then getting it out and stuff like that. Is like, are you willing to steal from this person? Okay,
cool.
You've got to, I think there has to be a face because it's not, it's like everybody thinks, oh, I'm stealing from a corporation, so that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because you probably, people, it's right down to like, people will take a Post-it notepad from the office, but you probably wouldn't take one from your friend's house.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting, isn't it? So interesting.
It really is interesting. And so there's a certain point because there's a lot of pushback there, but I think if you can make it like when you bring it down to a human scale, that it is your integrity worth doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of what the message is. I mean, I think that, copyright's not going to do it. But I think that a norm, the social norms of like what's acceptable, what's not, is what really needs to be communicated. Because again, we see this in other spaces, poetry, other things where they've created their own kind of best practices. And I think that quilting in some ways need that for both the shops and the guilds and the individuals, the churches, of like, how are we, what choices do we make as a society, and what do we want that to be? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's super important. That's kind of what the work we're trying to do, is trying to understand. So the work I'm doing is sort of threefold. One is like a really intense research into sort of what's happening, a book for the industry to understand sort of what the options are and what's happening, and then a kind of average person, like regular person, guilds and shop book that would be really fast and easy of like, here's what we believe, like here's what we do, and we want you to be part of that. So that's kind of the idea.
Well, and that's really it. I mean, and when you bring it back down to that human scale, that makes a huge difference. You know what? Were you actually able to get onto BadAss Quilter Society? Because my website is down, it looks like.
Yeah, I was on there. Let's see. Yeah,
okay.
It's working for me. It's up.
Okay. Oh, there we go. There it is. There we go.
Should I just put in copyright? Is that what I do?
Usually it's somebody else who tells me that it's down.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hi, it's down. Because used to be I was on it all day long and working on stuff. And honestly, I really have not touched this since March or, whenever it was. My last kind of hurrah was Spring Market. And I'm not going to market this year because I'm not working for any companies this year.
Yeah.
No. And so, because I really have to, my goal is to get this house finished, because otherwise I'll be 95 and still sitting around going, I really should put knobs on that cap.
Totally. I totally get it. Oh, I so get it. Okay, I found your how not to be an accidental content thief. This is great, right? This is great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is it.
There you go.
This is great. Awesome.
Fantastic. Well,
right.
I will send you the link to the copyright article, and if there's anything else you need, let me know.
That's great. Any advice for us? I'm at I was at Market and Festival last year. That's my first one, but this year we're going for a reel with a team and all kinds and a booth. Any advice or suggestions of what we should be doing that I might not think about?
Gosh, I mean, what's your goal there? I mean, if you know your goal, I mean, if you're just looking for exposure, I mean, you have to. I always think that you're looking at what your end goal is for the money that you spent. Yeah.
I think our goal is exposure and connecting to potentially for sponsorship and in-kind donations. So, yeah, I think that's what we're looking at. We're not there.
So you just have a reason to get people to get into your booth. And I always find, like, the biggest thing that I ever did when I was at Market was, of course, I had my BadAss pins and my logo and my swag and stuff like that. And that people could come find me and get, because I never had a booth. Yeah. I was amazed at how many people came to that. So if you have something pithy and fun, whether it's a bumper sticker or a sticker or whatever that people would want to collect and get, then, you know, that's something that brings them to you.
And do you think that the goal is... So, do you think the goal is to have something that has your logo on it, has something on it, so that they're getting is that, or is it just about, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it getting the message out through the logo that you did with their stuff, or is that not? Was that the key for you?
In my case, in my case, my logo really represented my stand. So people were like, if they resonated with it, that's the thing that they wanted on the back of their car. Right. You know, for people who didn't, they'd rather die. Right. You know, if they have it on the back of their car. But for everybody else, I mean, it was that gang. It was the quilting gang symbol. You know. Yeah. Right. And so for you, it's like, who wants to take up your call? Who is this important to? Right. And so if you have a phrase or
we call ourselves so we're
copyright count or whatever it is. Right. That way. Cool. Because quick little stories like this. So I have, and you'd relate to this, because our biggest problem in kitten rescue is the amount of people who go and literally steal kittens from under a bush. Because basically Mama Cat is out hunting. And they find the kittens under a bush. They grab them up and they run to the rescue. And then Mama Cat is still there. Oh, my goodness. And then she's just going to go get pregnant again. Okay? So one of my things is don't steal kittens. Don't steal kittens. Don't steal kittens. And it's don't be a kitten napper.
That's really great.
And so I've got a little logo that I've worked out that's like this little burglar kind of guy, and he's grabbing up a kitten and sneaking off with it. Yeah. Because that's really what happens. And the impact is that the mother then has another litter within, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever the hell it is. Yeah. And then the cycle starts again. So it doesn't help us at all. But so if you have something short and pithy that encapsulates who you are, and then there's the further www, and then when they can go and check out the big message.
Yeah, that's great. That's super great. Well, I'm so psyched that we chatted. I have like 1,000 more questions, but I just think you're awesome. And I can't wait. I have to follow you on Instagram now and watch your house progress, because I think that's super great.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram, and if you need anything, feel free to yell. Okay, you know where I am.
Yeah, that sounds great. Awesome. This is for...
And when you get more together, let me know, because we always do one thing that since I'm not doing a lot of work, if you have something that you would like to feature out or a question or whatever, send it to me and we can throw it up on BadAss.
Oh, I love it. That would be great, because
you'll get a lot of reflection that way.
That's fantastic. Now, are you cool with this being out, like us airing this as a podcast?
Sure. Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. And do you want to review it? Should I send it to you before we send it out? Is there anything you feel?
No, I said way more things on other podcasts.
Okay, good.
That I wouldn't. Awesome. There's nothing there to worry about.
All right, fabulous. Awesome. Well, this is great. Thank you again. This is so cool. And are you going to go to QuiltCon, do you think? Because you're it's close to you?
Probably not. Probably not. I won't. I'm actually going to a business summit October 1st to 5th to work on my skills for helping stores, small retail.
That's great.
So I'm going to be doing that because I love small retail.
Yeah.
And not just quilting even. I love small retail, and I think it's really a special part of our landscape, and so I'm going to be doing that.
Awesome. Well, let's chat more about that sometime. I would love to talk. Let's see if we can schedule another time and talk about small retail, because I think that's really important, and that would be so great. Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thanks for your time.
All right, honey. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
So this is Elizabeth Townsend-Gard. You've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. We want to hear from you. Join our army, our quilting army. Go to our Facebook page. Suggest people